Today we're going to be taking a look at a car that became a legend for very different reasons than most cars. This is the story of the cursed Porsche 550 Spyder, known as the Little Bastard. This story of this Type 550 starts with a young actor named James Dean, and although his career would only last 5 years, to his fans he was already an icon. James was a star, a rebel, and a dreamer. He had a passion for acting and racing, and he wanted to live fast and die young. He had bought a new Porsche 550 Spyder, a sleek and powerful sports car that matched his personality, and he was no stranger to Porsche as he had already owned and raced a Porsche 356 Super Speedster, and he planned to do the same with the 550 and was off to Salinas, California. Dean wasn't on this adventure alone. He had his mechanic friend Rolf Wutherreich by his side. They ended up getting stopped by a cop for speeding, but that didn't faze him. He was excited to test the limits of his new car. He had already showed the car off to his old acting buddy named Alex Guinness, and Guinness had warned him not to get in the car. He stated he had a bad feeling about it and that he thought James would die within a week. In keeping with his rebel without a cause persona, James Dean laughed it off and said he wasn't afraid of death. He continued the trip, enjoying the scenery and the thrill. At around 5:45 p.m., Dean was driving on Route 466, now State Road 46, near Charlemagne, California, when a Ford two-door, driven by Donald Turnipspeed, suddenly turned left in front of him. Dean tried to avoid the collision, but it was too late. The Porsche crashed into the Ford, sending both cars spinning off the road. Dean suffered multiple injuries, including a broken neck, and was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. Wutherreich was thrown out of the car and survived some serious injuries. Turnipspeed had minor injuries and was not charged any offense for the collision. But this isn't the end of the story. The Porsche was towed to a garage in Paso Robles where it caught fire. Luckily, the fire was quickly extinguished and the car was not badly damaged. George Barris, a famous car customizer at the time, ended up buying the car for $2,500, but he claimed the car was cursed and that it caused several accidents and deaths to anyone who came in contact with it. Among the stories, a doctor had purchased the engine of the vehicle and then raced his vehicle with the 550's engine, which crashed during the race, killing the doctor. Another driver bought the drivetrain of the vehicle and also died in a car crash while racing it. A mechanic who was unloading the 550 from a trailer had the vehicle slip and crushed his legs when the car fell on him. The chassis of the vehicle was transported to various safety shows to exhibit the dangers of reckless, fast driving, and one of the truck drivers transporting the vehicles lost control of his truck and ended up getting killed while transporting the vehicle. Possibly the strangest story of all, while the Porsche was being transported in a sealed boxcar from Miami to Los Angeles, it mysteriously disappeared and has not been seen since. Some speculate Barris himself had something to do with the disappearance of the 550, but with his death in 2015, we may never know. In the meantime, let's carefully bring it to Tokyo and see how it handles our lap. I've seen a lot of praise for the Porsche 550 online, but the car to me seems very twitchy and very difficult to tune. It is a mid-engine car, which is not typical of Porsche. It's more like the Boxster and the Cayman, but the vehicle itself, when you start to stiffen it up, is not at all forgiving. I'll have my setup at the end, but I basically left it alone because anything I did seemed to make the car almost undrivable. Even on our best lap, the car got a little bit out of control and we ended up scraping the wall. It did do pretty well with the tires, with about 5% wear to the front and about 10% wear to the rear, and the fuel wasn't bad either. It was looking like the car was going to get right around 8 laps with our track setup. That's not to say the car isn't fun to drive, but at $4.5 million in legendary motors, there are much better options, so I would definitely recommend this more as a late game purchase if you're going to purchase it at all. I ended up buying 2 of them just because I wanted to have one with this livery, and I wanted another one that never had this livery just in case. The car is quite capable at the Le Mans 700 series races, as long as you don't tweak the suspension too much, which was the mistake I made early on, and you can eventually earn your money back, so it's not a terrible investment. It's also an interesting addition to the garage, partially just because of the lore behind this car. The story of this car may have been exaggerated by George Barris and others, but there are those that believe it and there are those that doubt it, just like anything else. And there are people that are actually searching for this car today, while others do their best to avoid it. Some people say it's still out there waiting for its next victim, while others say it's nothing more than a car. The Porsche Type 550 is able to put down some impressive laps, but it's not easy to keep this car consistent because it is quite temperamental, so you have to pay close attention to what you're doing while you're driving it. We ended up putting down a time of 2 minutes 10 seconds .860, which puts it just behind the Ferrari 250 GTO and just in front of the Honda S800 with the engine swap. This puts the Type 550 in a decent spot for grinding the Le Mans race, but there are cars that I enjoy driving more, so it'll most likely end up back on the shelf. But thank you so much for watching, and please like and subscribe for future content.